Hi, I'm Amber and today I'm talking about the dissociation tag again. In this video I'm literally just going to talk a little bit about how to participate, then I'm just going to kind of unpack the questions a little bit because they're quite big questions. So, if you do want to participate, but you're thinking, oh my goodness, 10 questions on a YouTube video, that's too much. Don't do that. That's fine. You can answer questions 1 and 5, or you can answer questions 5 and 7. You can answer one of them in a video. You could do a video for each question if you think I would talk too much, which will be me probably. You can do it on a Twitter thread or on Tumblr or anything. You can literally just use it at your use, and if you don't want to put it out there, that's cool. Just use it for your own use and your own benefit if you think it's going to help you. It's literally just a tool. There is no rules or anything. If you do participate on a social media platform, if the social media platform has a tag system, you need to tag the dissociation tag. If that's on YouTube, then it will be added to a playlist on my channel so that everyone can have a space where they're all together and all the dissociation tags are together. Hopefully people will do it and then that will be there. Otherwise it'll just be mine in there. If it's not on YouTube, tag it anyway. If the social media platform you're using doesn't have a tag system, then if you you can just feel free to message me so I don't miss out on what you've got to say. A little kind of disclaimer type thing, by putting the dissociation tag in the tags box and the title, which I ask you to do as well, to put it somewhere in the title, by doing that you are agreeing for me to put it on my channel. And if there was any ever, I don't know, I wanted to make a little compilation thing, you're agreeing for me to do that as well, if that makes sense. Obviously, if I did use a piece of the video in something else, I would fully credit it and the channel and the person, and obviously all of that. I'm not going to claim it's my own because it's not me. If you don't want that to be the case, if you don't want it to be on the playlist, or if you don't want it used in anything, if you just want to keep it, or if you want to keep it, if it's maybe like a blog post, you want to keep it anonymous or something, I don't know, anything like that, then just email me. My email address is on the tag website, so just email me and just clearly state what material is yours and what you don't want it to be used for, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about any of that, then of course you can just contact me. That's the bit done because I don't want to get in trouble for anything. Yeah, and obviously when you're creating, I'm going to say this in every single video, when you are creating a response, please take care of yourself. If you have a grounding tools and stuff, I know when I'm going to do my tag, I'm definitely going to have my grounding stuff here. Make sure I take my time with it, but be careful, and also just be mindful of the type of audience that is watching, especially if you're discussing any kind of difficulties. Just be mindful that something that perhaps isn't triggering for you can be triggering for someone else. So please, content warning and trigger warning appropriately. So when you think I'd quite like to do this tag, there will be kind of 3 documents that you can take a browse at. The first one will be the questions. There will be a document of just the questions. The second one will be the unpacking. So the unpacking of the questions that I'm about to go through, it's in a document. So I'm using them as the notes for the video, but they're also going to be available to you for anyone to use if they just want to read over the unpacking again and everything like that. Obviously it's not going to be exactly the same as the video, but it's the same kind of basis, it's the same what I put into it. And then there's another document, and it's a few notes on safety, and I please ask you to definitely read through that, because it's just making sure you're safeguarding yourself and the people watching, because I don't want this space to be problematic in any way. I really want it to be a supportive kind of space and maybe even a community kind of thing. But I understand that talking about things like this could be troubling, and they could be triggering, and they could be problematic. So that document is just to hopefully just keep in mind those things when you're talking about your experiences. Okay, I think that's all the bit to start with. So unpacking the questions. Yeah, so these kind of expansion or the unpacking of the questions, you don't have to stick to them. If you look at the question and your mind goes somewhere, go with that. That's cool. Don't think, oh, that's not in the unpacking bit. That's cool. This document and this video is, the unpacking is to kind of show you where my thought process was when creating the questions. And also just because they are big questions, just to give you some ideas. If you're thinking, I want to talk about this, but I'm a bit stuck, there is a lot. You don't have to use all of it. Like, that's cool. I'm just going to kind of brush over it now. So question 1 is, how do you personally experience dissociation? And feel free to talk about this within the context of a diagnosis if you have one. And how would you, or do you, describe these experiences to others? Okay, so this is describing your own experience, not an experience that you have seen somewhere else, unless it is aiding your description. And when describing your experience, think about things like how it feels. Is there any body sensations? Is there any sensory things? Is there any emotions that crop up often? And how does that feel? And all of that kind of stuff. Think about describing it to someone who doesn't know what dissociation is and doesn't know how it feels at all. And if you're describing it in the context of a diagnosis, keep in mind that doesn't have to be a dissociative diagnosis. That can be an anxiety disorder, that can be a physical condition. If it relates to how you experience it and how you describe it to someone else, then that is absolutely sweet. So question 2, how have your experiences varied, altered or changed throughout different stages of your life? This is just kind of the general ebb and flow of how you've experienced dissociation, how it might have changed, whether it's concentrated around one particular point in your life, whether it's been the same all the way through. Maybe it's grown in intensity or decreased in intensity. Maybe it's you used to experience it as a depersonalization kind of thing, and now you have alternative personality states, and that's how it's kind of changed. Maybe you've never felt like you experienced it, and then once in your life you got this one experience. Keep in mind that you don't have to think about changes in terms of time. For me personally, I think about the changes whenever I think about how I was, I think about the place that I was in. And again, this can be described in the context of a diagnosis if it relates into how your experience has changed. So number 3 is, do you experience or have you ever experienced being self-aware during periods of dissociation? If so, how do you feel it alters the level of control or agency, maybe a better word, that you have over your dissociation and yourself in the moment? Now, I'm thinking of being self-aware within dissociation as kind of a, oh, I'm disassociating, right, okay, and now I notice that kind of thing. Or maybe you're just kind of aware of your needs in the moment. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're just kind of watching yourself, if that makes sense. And I'm thinking about control over the experience as the ability you have to influence your actions. So the ability you'd have to maybe ground yourself, to make you carry out an action, to stop you carrying out an action. That's what I'm seeing as control. And I'm not meaning it as a, are you in control of yourself? I'm meaning it as just to discuss the different ways that you can be self-aware during dissociation. And just, how does that make you feel? How does the experience make you feel? Does it make you feel like you have agency over your body? Or does it make you feel like you have a loss of agency? Again, as every question, it could be a little bit difficult to talk about things like that. If it is, move on, don't worry about it. If you experience dissociation in a few ways, is the experience of being self-aware different for each type of dissociation? And just things like, has this always been the case? Has it changed? All of that kind of stuff. So how does or has your experience with dissociation affected you in your life? How does it interact with other areas of your health and illness, both mental and physical? So has your experience stopped or hindered something in your life? Maybe it's altered the way you do things. Maybe it's brought about a positive change in your life. Maybe it's led you in a different direction, a different career path maybe, led you to a different country, a different place of living. The impacts could be a day-to-day interference, or it could be something that maybe you feel like it stopped your life for a year or something like that. Maybe it's affected you by meaning you're more in tune with yourself, you're more in tune with your needs. It doesn't have to be a negative experience. It's brought about a positive change. Talk about that. That's cool, sweet, do that. And how it interacts with different areas of your life as well as different illnesses. So maybe it interacts with gender, your body image, how you view yourself. Maybe it interacts with your relationships or your lifestyle, like food and exercise. Like all of that kind of thing, that could be how it affects your life, and how different areas of your life affect the dissociation, which is why I've used the word interact with other areas of your health instead of affect different areas of your health. It's a two-way street. It's not just how does your dissociation spill into everything else. It's how does everything else spill into that as well. What does that do for you? And have these effects changed over time? So with all these questions, it's how it is now, and maybe you can talk about how it is in your kind of life's timeline kind of thing. So number 5 is, what are your experiences of dissociation within society? In your opinion, have you ever encountered any discrimination, mistreatment, or misunderstanding surrounding your experience and disorders? Now, again, an extra safety note, that if you experience any really difficult experiences, maybe being told you're making things up, being refused treatment, or receiving an incorrect type of treatment, being subject to hurtful language, or maybe even abusive behaviour because of the dissociation, then please be extra careful about that, and please, you don't need to talk about it if you're not safe in it. So things you could talk about are things like, are these mistreatments direct or are they indirect? The experiences could relate to friends, family, healthcare workers, professionals, employees, colleagues, your GP, like whoever, like maybe you've experienced people typecasting you or assuming negative stereotypes, or just being genuinely confused when you tell them, or maybe they don't believe you. And another thing is, if you when you're talking about confusion, is that a positive or negative experience? Is it, I don't understand, can you help me understand? Or is it, I don't understand, that's weird? If they have been negative, how do you cope with them? And feel free to share a positive experience of your dissociation within society, or you can have a rant if you need to. So question 6 is, do you receive any treatment or therapy targeted at managing your dissociative experiences or disorders? And if so, how do you feel that helps you manage? So really the focus on this question is, how do you feel it helps you manage? Because you want to be careful around any sensitive topics that you might discuss in therapy. I'm not asking you to go into detail or go into that at all. It's really like, if you want to say what type of therapy you receive, maybe you receive trauma work or EMDR therapy, maybe it's CBT based, maybe it's more like free therapy, so it's not based on a model. Maybe you receive kind of treatment and therapy in the way of groups and like facilitated sessions to give you tasks and tools and grounding strategies and all of that kind of stuff. Another question could be, do you feel it's helped in an active or a passive way? Kind of, does it just help by you talking about experiences and processing them and just getting them off your chest kind of thing? Or is it a more active thing? Are you going home and you're doing homework? And also another thing is, do you think that it decreases your dissociative symptoms, or does it just make it easier to cope with them? I think that's quite an interesting question. You don't have to answer it, but I think it's quite interesting. Okay, so question 7. This one, please take extra care. And I'm trigger warning it, and just take a minute for yourself, because with this question is talking a little bit about trauma. So you just need to be extra careful with yourself. Question 7 is, some dissociative experiences and disorders can be linked to trauma. If this applies to you, how do you work with the trauma to better manage your dissociative symptoms? So the question is about trauma, but again, as the last question was, the focus is really on, how do you manage? How do you work with it to help you manage better day to day? But really, you don't have to talk about it at all. Even if you don't want to talk about how you work with it, that's cool. Please move on. And that obviously applies to all the rest of the questions, but I understand that this one could be a little bit extra. Something that I found quite helpful is discussing it in terms of difficulties and sticky events. For me, that feels more comfortable to speak about it in that way. So if you're talking about how you work with the trauma, perhaps this is through a really structured EMDR therapy. Maybe that's just by talking it through, writing it down maybe. Maybe you work with your life's timeline and you just pin some sticky events kind of thing to don't go with later. Maybe you're identifying your triggers, and so that you can practice in the moment, and it's kind of giving those triggers less power. Maybe that's how you work with it. Or maybe you're still feeling this out. Maybe you're thinking, maybe it applies to me, maybe it doesn't. I'm in that place too. So question 8, bringing us out of that little bit of a stressful place, possibly. So how do you cope day to day? I.e. the use of grounding tasks, tools, strategies, etc., things like that. So these can be preventative tasks and strategies, day-to-day tools, or in-the-moment tasks and techniques. Maybe you use grounding tasks, so physical objects that you're kind of using to connect your senses, maybe using essential oils, maybe you have a mantra that you say to yourself in stressful times, maybe it's breathing techniques, mindfulness, kind of having a set routine, questions that you ask yourself when you're feeling a little bit out of it about yourself. Maybe these tools are derived from anxiety management. Maybe they weren't dedicated to dissociation, but they help you. That's obviously cool. Maybe you do a weekly or daily planner. Maybe you do a kind of bullet journal thing and you track your triggers and track your mood, track your dissociative symptoms, and that helps you feel in control. Maybe you do something like wearing a watch. So anything that is helping you connect to yourself in the world around you. Maybe you connect to yourself by drawing yourself or something like that, and labeling your traits that you know about yourself. Maybe you do values cards and you revisit those values. So another question is, do you do any risk planning, have a crisis plan, have an emergency card? Maybe when you go somewhere, maybe you kind of plan it and kind of plan ahead and assess the risks. Okay, so moving on, nearly at the end. Question 9 is, are you involved with any positive communities or networks that are particularly supportive of dissociative disorders and experiences? If so, how are they helpful to you? If appropriate, feel free to share the names of these communities. You might be noticing a theme here. A lot of the questions are this question, how is this helpful to you? Because I want the tone of this to talk about our experiences, but talk about how we help those experiences. So these communities could be inline, they could be in person. A note to say that be careful about online communities, make sure that it's a legitimate kind of organisation. Maybe it's a space that's not dedicated to dissociation, but it's really just supportive of it. It helps you by kind of getting your mind onto something else, but still feeling supported and safe. So a question that you could ask yourself is this community a professional one, a social one? Is it structured or is it a bit more relaxed? And how do you get involved with that community? And share the experiences within those communities as well, because hopefully they're really positive, and just really what you got out of them, why they were helpful, and any just really positive experiences would be really, really nice to hear about a nice supportive community. So last question, question 10, and this is there anything else you would like to add about dissociative experiences and or disorders, either in relation to you personally or within the wider society? So this is now even more your space. The rest of it was your space as well, but this is really like free reign, anything helpful, any comments or experiences that didn't seem to fit into the other questions, or maybe you just forgot them at the time and you've just remembered again now. A message to others, and this I think is nice, but also be careful about giving direct advice, because everyone is different and something that may seem advice might actually be problematic. So just be careful with that one. But obviously if you want to give a little message to say, you're not alone and all of that kind of stuff, that's cute, do that. Any other rants, if you want to rant, go for it. Any positive experiences you might have had, maybe you've just had positive experiences last week with someone, maybe someone's just started to understand, anything like that, please share that. It's really, really your free space to talk. Obviously being mindful, if something you want to talk about is something of a difficult time, check with yourself, just check over and think, is this something I need to actually discuss in a safe therapeutic environment? If so, maybe just pin it and write it down, talk about it with, if you have a therapist or anything like that. So anything, asterisks, as long as you're safe and as long as you're being mindful of other people. Sorry about all those disclaimers and asterisks, I just really want everyone to be safe. Okay, so I feel like throat hurts. I've just rambled at you for probably way too long, but that is all the questions, that is all the unpacking. And again, you don't have to stick to these, it's just to give you maybe some ideas. So give yourselves a cuddle, please stay safe, especially when talking about dissociation and watching things about dissociation. I really hope some people do the tag. I think it would be really cool. I really wanted to listen to other people's experiences. So give yourselves a cuddle, stay safe, and I might see you next time. I don't know. I'll see my camera again, so you can choose if you'd like to be there. Goodbye. Curtain for today.